What's up, everybody? Pastor Matt, thanks for checking into the YouTube channel. Hey, I wanted to talk about something kind of cool that I've been doing for 8 years now. I just finished up my 8th year of using this particular journal. It's called a 10-year journal. I've got it right here in my hand. I'm also going to just share my screen and show you some pictures of this thing. But somebody told me about this a long time ago, and I thought it'd be really cool to get one of these. I'm the kind of person that likes to record things and keep track of things and dates and how many times I do this and that and all sorts of things. And so they showed me this thing called the 10-year journal. And so I bought one of these 8 years ago. It's not quite filled up, but there's a reason why that's true, which I'll explain to you in just a second. But anyways, the premise of this 10-year journal is that every single day you begin to write down what you do in that day on the same page for the same date of the calendar. So for instance, every October 1st is going to be listed on one page. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have a little bit of space for every single year, the years 2011 through 2021, and you're going to write down 2 or 3 sentences about what you did every single day. So I've been doing that now for 8 years. I remember the day I got this thing. I remember the first thing I wrote down in this journal. And what this does is it gives you the advantage of being able to track your life over the period of 10 years. Now, of course, it works best if you write in it every single day. But thankfully for me, I am a creature of habit. And so doing the exact same thing every single day is not really a problem for me. I'm just sort of wired that way. Anyways, if you're just joining this YouTube channel, my name is Matthew Everhard. I'm the pastor here at Gospel Fellowship PCA. We are a Reformed church, Presbyterian and Conviction, just north of Pittsburgh. If you're looking for a church like that, you found one, come check us out. Gospel Fellowship PCA. Well, here's the 10-year journal. It's all worn and tattered by now, but tell you what, let's take a look on the inside here and have a look at what this thing does. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that every single year you get a whole page that's just kind of blank. It's called goals and accomplishments. Now you could do whatever you want on this particular page. For me, what I've chosen to do is keep track of all the things that I read. So for 8 years now, every time I finish a book, I write it down in the front page of my yearly accomplishments. And I could put other things in there, publications or whatnot, or sermon series that I preach or whatever I want to do, dates that I've taken my wife on, whatever I want to do. But I chose to use this blank space to keep track of all of my reading. And so you can see here that this year, 2021, I read, I don't know, in the area of 25 books. Now, if I read an article online, I usually don't include that, although there are some cases where a book is so massive that I will include a portion of that book as though it were an entire book. It's anyway, just whatever you want to do with it. And then what I do is I write down the dates in which I completed that particular book or reading. So you can see that just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I finished my 20-something book of the year. I finished up the introduction to the Notes on Apocalypse, which is one of the volumes of Jonathan Edwards's Yale Critical Edition works. So read that, wrote it down. So I've been doing that now for 8 years. And so I can look back for 8 years over all of the books that I've read over time. And that's just kind of a neat way to track what I've been able to read. Now, here's a sample page. And this is what I really wanted to show you. This is what any regular page looks like. And so you can see that at the top right corner of the page or the top left corner, depending on which side of the page you're looking at here, you get one date per page. This is going to be every single December 20th over the years. And so I selected this page on purpose because this is the date that my grandma died. So Grandma Betty died on this date, December 20th, in the year 2013. And so you have this block right here, which you can fill in anything you want. Now, typically I leave that block blank because I'm going to have to look at that title every single year, but this would be a great spot to put things like birthdays or anniversaries. Husbands, you don't want to miss your anniversary. That'd be a no-no. Or you can put, as I did, the date that people died or the dates of ordination or started a new job, whatever you want to do. Just keep in mind that if you're going to write something in this particular block up here, it's probably going to want to be something that you're going to want to recall every single year. And so you can see now how this journal is kind of organized. It's one date per page. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines that you can write anything that happened in that particular year. So 2011, 2012, 2013. Now I've only been using this journal for 8 years. And so I have a couple of years that I wasn't using it. I got this journal in 2013, but the journal starts in 2011. So I actually got it for a discount because it was 2 years old and it's kind of dated. So, I mean, that's why I got it cheaper. Plus, I wasn't sure if it was going to work out. It ended up, it's something I do every single night, and I really enjoy doing this. But anyways, you get about 4 or 5 lines per day. And so every single day, at the end of the day, right before I go to bed, I do a couple things. I kiss my wife goodnight, I read my Bible, say my prayers, and I write down 3 or 4 lines about what I did on that particular day. Now you can see here at the bottom, some days are busier than others. This day happened to be this year a Monday, and I'm off. So all I wrote down was off, slept in, easy day. There aren't a lot of days like that in my life as a busy pastor, writer, doing all sorts of things for the glory of Christ. But every once in a while I have a day where I just do practically nothing. And so I just wrote that down. And so now I can look back over the years and see what I did on that exact day. So it's kind of a pretty cool concept, isn't it? I already mentioned this block in the top of the page, so I don't need to do that. Now, there's something else here that you can use any way you want. Probably many of you that are watching this video are not preachers, and so that's totally cool. But you have these little bulbs right here, these fill-in bubbles to do something, to mark things. You can mark anything you want to mark. And there's also a little spot right here where you can write page numbers. If you're reading a particular book, you can you write what page you're on to remind yourself for next day, whatever you want to do. I've chosen to fill in these little bubbles right here with preaching or teaching. So every single time that I preach or teach, I fill in that little bubble. And that just reminds me that I preached or taught on that day. And then I usually will write down, what it is I preached or taught, so I can remind myself. So for instance, last year, December 20th happened to be a Sunday, and I wrote down preached Isaiah 9:1-6 3 times. And so I filled in 3 bubbles. That lets me know that I preached 3 times or taught 3 times that particular day. So one of the main things that I do with this journal, besides track what happens in my life, is keep track of the things that I'm working on or the things that I'm trying to accomplish, including my sermons and my preaching and teaching. So I find it very interesting to know at the end of the year how many times I preached or taught. That's just something I find interesting. Now, notice up here in 2015, I preached my 100th sermon this year. I thought that was a pretty big deal to preach 100 times in 1 year. I'm going to show you some statistics here in just a minute that blew me away a little bit related to this year, 2021. But back in 2015, I was at a different church, different context, different responsibilities, and I preached 100 times that year. I thought it was very, very cool. Now, I also do something else with these little bubbles right here, and I can just kind of show you this here on the screen. I have a couple of other symbols that I've created. An M for me means a meeting, and so I had a meeting with somebody. Maybe it's a session meeting, or I met with the deacons, or I met with the staff, or I met with this person or that person for lunch. I like to keep track of those things too. I just find that very interesting to keep track of my meetings. And I have another symbol too. Instead of an M for meeting, I use a V for a visitation. If I visit somebody in the hospital, if I go to somebody's home, I put a little V in those bubbles too. And so those are the 3 things that I like to track numerically: my preaching and teachings, my meetings, and my hospital and home visitation. So that's what I've been keeping track of. Now here's 2021 by the numbers. Again, I just finished up my 8th year. I was totally blown away when I counted up my my numerical productivity this year, I suppose. And that is that I actually preached or taught 224 times this year. Way more than I had been in the past. Now, there's a fairly obvious reason for that. Now, the fairly obvious reason is that when I was at Faith Church in Brooksville, Florida, we had a pretty big sanctuary, and I only had to preach 1 time. So it didn't matter if we had 350 or 450 or 500 in worship. I just had to preach 1 sermon. But down here at up here, I should say, at Gospel Fellowship, we have a smaller sanctuary, and we have to do multiple services. So on any given Lord's Day, I'm going to preach the same sermon twice or 3 times even. When we were going through the period of the pandemic, we split up into 3 different services. We had an 8:30, an 11, and a 4 o'clock. So some Lord's Days, I was actually preaching 3 times, same message, but I preached it 3 times, so I counted that as 3. And so this year I added up all my preachings and teachings, and I blew away any previous record 224 times. And then I actually subcategorized that when I was putting together my little report for my end of year, a pastoral thing for the elders. I subcategorized that by sermons, Sunday school lectures, Wednesday nights, young adult fellowships, academic lectures that I taught, small groups, men's Bible study, fellowship group. So I subcategorized that, added all together 224 times. Now, I am not attempting to brag here. And if it comes off that way, please just click off this video and go to a different video. I'm not bragging about myself. I'm just telling you how I use this video. None of these numbers have anything to do with the salvation of my soul. There's nothing you can possibly do to earn or merit salvation. We know that the gospel is by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. I'm not showing you this to show how many goodies I've done on my scale of good versus bad. That is not the point. I'm merely just showing you something that you could do if you were to use this 10-year journal as I have. So I've also counted up 131 meetings and 30 pastoral visits. Now that's a good indicator of what my balance of life is like. I may look at those numbers at the end of the year and say to myself, gosh, you know, I'm really spending a lot of time in my preaching and teaching ministry. Maybe I need to do more visits. And so that could be something that I talk with about the elders. I can say, maybe I need to drop this study or give somebody else charge of this fellowship group and spend more time visiting people in their homes, whatever the elders please for me to do. It's just an interesting way to accumulate that data. So anyways, I just wanted to show you this. It's a neat way to track your life. It's a neat way to keep track of how you are doing, what you're doing, and you can do this too in a 10-year journal. Of course, your life is probably totally different than mine, and you can use it in different ways. But if you're interested in getting one of these things, I am going to look it up on Amazon and see if they still exist. Hopefully they do, because I'm probably going to need another one at the end of the sheet, end of the year, end of the book for the most part. And I will post a link in the description of this video to where you can get one on Amazon. If you can't get one on Amazon, I'll try to find a link of somewhere else that sells something like this. And maybe you too could keep track of your life. Again, it probably works the best, to be completely honest, if you're willing to do it every single day of your life. And if you do that, you're going to have the most success in comparing and contrasting your days over the years, the months, and even the decades. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for checking out this video. Got all kinds of stuff here on this channel. Hope you find some of it beneficial. If you do, that's great. If you don't, no big deal. But anyways, do love you lots, and we'll talk to you later.